Oh, welcome back.
Welcome.
Uh,
We
t-
got.
oh,
Oh, I'll say it. We got another story here today. It's by Scare in a Box. It's another one from r/slash nosleep. This one's called "I Run a Disposable Service for Cursed Objects." It seems it's probably gonna be 30 minutes, maybe 40. Another good sized one.
it sounds very cool, to be honest. I'm quite excited for this one. Ben picked this one out, so
It sounds
hopefully.
awesome.
Yeah, it sounds pretty cool. Alright, you take it away, Mr. Benjamin.
I got you. I run a disposable service for cursed objects. Flanked on either side by palace guards in their filigree blue uniforms, the painter looked austere in comparison. Together they lead him through a hallway as tall as it was wide, with walls encumbered with paintings and tapestries, taxidermy, and trinkets. It was an impressive showpiece of the queen's power, of her success, and her wealth. When they arrived at the chamber where he was to be received, he was directed by a page who slid open the heavy ornate doors with practiced difficulty. Inside was more art, instruments, and flowers across every span of his sight. It was an assault of colors, and sat amongst them was an aging woman on a delicately couch, sat sideways with her legs together, a look on her face that was serious and yet calm.
Your Majesty, the page spoke, his eyes cast down to avoid her gaze. He bowed deeply, the painter joining him in the motion. Your Majesty, the painter repeated, as the page slid back out of the room. Behind him, the door sealed with an echoing thump. Come, she spoke after a moment, gently. He obeyed. Besides the Jacquard?
Jack
Jacquard?
Jackward?
Jacquard?
Think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, Jacquard
Jackward.
couch upon Jacquard couch upon which she sat was oh, the artwork he had produced displayed on easel, but yet covered by silk cloth. Painter, I am to understand that your work has come to fruition. Her voice was breathy and paced leisurely.
Leisurely.
Yeah, I got leisurely, carefully enunciating each syllable with calculated precision. Yes, your majesty. I hope it will be to your satisfaction. Very good. Then let us witness this painting, this work that truly portrays my beauty.
The painter moved his hand to a corner of the silk on the back of the canvas, and with a brisk tug exposed the result of his efforts for the queen to witness. His pale eyes fixed helplessly on her reflection as he attempted to read her thoughts through the subtle shifts in her face. He watched as her eyes flicked up and down, left and right, drinking in the subtleties of his shadows, the boldness of color that he'd used, the intricate foreshortening to produce a great depth to his work. He'd been certain that she'd approve, and yet her face gave no likeness to his belief.
Painter. Her body and head remained still, but finally her eyes slid over to meet his. Yes, your majesty. A request of you to create a piece of work that betrayed my beauty in its truth. For this, I offered a vast wealth. This is correct, your majesty. This is not my beauty, my form, my shape. Yes, but I am no fool. As she spoke, his world paled around him, backing off into a dreamlike haze as her face became the sole thing in focus. Her heart beat faster, deeper, threatening to burst from his chest. Her head raised slightly. Her eyes gazed down on him in disappointment beneath furrowed brow. We'll do it once more, and again, if it needs be. But know this, painter, until you grant me what I have agreed to, no food, no food shall pass thin lips.
Thine.
Di- Shut up, bro.
Yeah! That's brutal.
Panic set in. His hands began to shake, and his mind raced. Your Majesty, it can alter what you like me to change, but please, I require guidance on what you will find satisfactory. Page. she called, facing the door for a moment before casting her gaze on the frantic man before her.
He spoke to him no more after that. In his dank cell he toiled day after day, churning out masterpieces of all sizes, of differing styles, in attempt to please his liege, but none would set him free. His body gradually wasted away to an emaciated pile of bones and
Oh,
dusty flesh, now drowned by his sullied attire that had once fit so well. At the news of his death, the queen herself came by to survey the scene, her nose turning up at the saccharine stench of what remained of his decaying flesh. He had left one last painting facing the wall, the brush still clutched between gaunt fingers, spattered with color, eager to know if he finally had fulfilled her request. She carefully turned it around to find a painting that didn't depict her at all.
uh-oh.
It was instead a dark image, different in style than the others had produced. It was far rougher, produced hastily, frantically from dying hands. The painter had created a portrait of himself, cast against a black background. His frail, skeletal figure was hunched over on his knees, the reddened, naked figure of flayed human torso before him, his fingers clutched around a chunk of flesh, ripped straight from the body, holding it to his widened maw while scarlet blood dribbled across his chin and into his beard.
Hot.
She looked on in horror, unable to take her gaze away from the painting. As horrifying as the scene was, there was something that unsettled her even more about the painter's face, mouth, wide as he consumed human flesh, was a look of profound madness. His eyes shone brightly against the dark background, piercing the gaze of the viewer, and going deeper, right down to the soul. In them, he poured the most detail and attention, and even though he could not truly portray her beauty, he had truly portrayed his desperation, his solitude, and his fear. She would go on to become the first victim of the portrait of a starving man.
God damn.
That was
That
immaculate.
was beautiful.
That was.
That
That
was
was like
beautiful.
that was artwork, dude. That was crazy.
Nah, good work, man. Whoever wrote this, that's crazy.
Yeah, honestly.
I checked the address to make sure I had the right place before I stepped out of my car into the orange glow of the sunrise. An impressive place, it was with black coated timber contrasting against white wattle and doob? Daub? Doob?
Uh, and daub
And
walls.
daub. What's that mean? It doesn't.
Dobby. I don't know. Let's look that one up. It's been a while since we've looked up a word.
I am
Daub.
curious.
Daub. Coat or smear a surface with a thick or sticky substance in a carelessly rough or liberal way.
Hmm.
Like dabbed. She dabbed her face with night cream.
Did that say dab and we're just retarded?
It says daub, but I feel like you
Okay.
say daub as like pronounced dabbed. We're a little special, but that's all right.
Okay, anyway. Daub walls on the upper levels, which stat up top a rich, ornate brick base strew with arcs and decorative ridges that spanned its diameter. I knew my client was wealthy, but from their carefully curated gardens and fountains on the grounds, they were more well off than I had assumed.
I climbed the steps to their front door to announce my arrival, but before I had a chance, the entry opened to reveal the bony frame of a middle-aged man with tufts of white hair sprouting from the sides of his head. He hadn't had chance to get properly dressed, still clad in his pajamas, high jammas, and a dark cashmere robe, but ushered me in hastily.
I'd ordinarily offer you a cup of tea or some breakfast. You'll have to forgive me. Oh, and I do ignore the mess. It's been hard to get anything done in this state. He sounded
He sounded
Oh no, you got it. You got
oh,
it. You got it.
okay. He sounded concerned. In my line of work, that wasn't uncommon. Normal people weren't used to dealing with things outside of what they considered ordinary. What he had for me was a great find, something I'd heard about in my studies, but never thought I'd have the chance to see in person.
I'm actually quite excited to see it. I'm sorry I'm so early. I chirped. I chirped. I got it. I chirped. Perhaps my excitement was showing through a little too much, given the grave circumstances. I've done as you advised, all the carbs and fats I can handle, but it doesn't seem to be doing much. It was never meant to. He wouldn't put on any more weight, but at least it would buy him time while I drove the 1,000-odd miles to get here. There.
Damn.
All that matters is I'm here now. It was quite the drive, though.
He led me through his house towards the back into a smoking room. Tall bookshelves lined the walls, packed with rare and unusual tomes from every period. Some of the spines were battered and bruised, but every one of his collection was complete and arranged dutifully. Dark leather chairs with silver-studded arms claimed the center of the room, and a tasseled lamp glowed in one corner with an orange aura. It was dark, as cozy as it was intimidating. It had a presence of noxiously opulent masculinity, the kind of place bankers and businessmen would conduct shady deals behind closed doors.
Quite a place you've got here, I noted, empty of any real sentiment.
Yep,
Thank you. This room doesn't see much use. But, well, there it is. He motioned to the back of the room, displayed in a lit alcove? Yeah,
alcove.
alcove. A lit alcove in the back was the painting I'd come all this way to see. And where did you say you got it? A friend of mine bought it at an auction, shortly before he died. He began hobbling his way slowly through the room. His wife decided to give it away some of his things. Oh, yeah. His wife decided to give away some of his things. And there was just something about the raw emotion it invokes. His head shook as he spoke. And then you started losing weight. Yourself? Starving like the man in the painting. That's right, I thought. I was sick or something. But nobody could find anything wrong with me. And that's exactly what happened to your friend, too.
His expression darkened, like I'd uttered something I shouldn't have. He didn't say a word. I cast my gaze up to the painting, directly into those haunting eyes. Whoever the man in the painting was, his hunger still raged to the present day. His pain still seared through that stare, his suffering without cease.
You were the first person to touch it after he died. The curse is yours. I looked back to his gaunt face, his skin hanging from his cheekbones. By willingly taking the painting, knowing the consequences, I accept the curse along with it. Miss, I really hope you know what you're doing. There was a slight fear in his eyes, diluted with the relief that he might make it out of this alive. Don't worry, I've got worse in my vault already. With that, I carefully removed the painting from the wall. You're free to carry on as you would normally. Thank you, miss. You're an angel. Really. I chuckled at his thanks. No, sir. Far from it. No shit.
Dude, this is such. I love this story so far. It's so cool.
Yeah, this is cool.
With a lot less haste than I had left, I made my way back to my home in a disused church in the hills. It was out of the way. Should the worst happen in a sparsely populated region nestled between farms and wilderness, creaky floorboards signaled my arrival, and the setting sun cast colorful, glittering light through the tall stained glass windows. Right there, in the middle of the otherwise empty room, was a large vault, crafted from thick lead, rimmed with a band of silver around its middle. On the outside, I had painstakingly painted a magic circle of protection around it, aligned with the orientation of the church and the stars. Around that was a circle of salt. I wasn't taking any chances.
Clutching the painting under my arm, in its protective box, I took the key from around my neck and unlocked the vault. With a heave, I swung the door open and peered inside to find a suitable place for it. To the inside walls, I had stuck pages from every holy book, hung talismans, harnessed crystals, and I'd have to repeat incantations and spray holy water every so often to keep things in check. Each object housed within my vault had its own history and its own curse to along. Oh my! And its own curse to along with it. I almost just choked.
Damn.
There was a mirror that couldn't look away from. A book included madness, a cup that poisoned anyone that drank from it, all manner of objects from many different generations of human suffering. Damn.
That's sick. Truth be told, I was starting to run out of room. I'd gotten very good at what had become my job, and had gotten a bit of a name for myself within the community. Not that I was out for fame or fortune, but the occult had interested me since I was a little girl. I pulled a few other paintings forward and slid their new partner behind, standing back upright in full sight of one of my favorite finds. Pierce the puppet. He looked no different than when I found him, still with that frustrated anger fused to his porcelain face, contrasting the jovial clown doll he once was. Crude tufts of black string for hair protruded from a beaten yellow top hat, and his body was stuffed with straw, upon which a musty, almost fungal smell, or which hung a musty, almost fungal smell. The spirit kept within him was laced with such vile anger that even here in my vault it remained not entirely neutralized.
You know, I still feel kind of bad for you, I mentioned to him with a slight shrug, checking the large bucket I placed beneath him. Being stuck in here can't be great.
He'd been rendered immobile by the wards in my vault, but if I managed to piss him off, he had a habit of throwing up blood. At one point, I tried keeping him in the bucket to prevent him from doing it in the first place, but I just ended up having to clean him too. Outside of the vault, he was a danger, but in here he had been reduced to a mere anecdote. I took pity on him.
My offer still stands, you know, I muttered to him, opening up a small wooden chest containing my most treasured find. Every time I came into the vault, I would look at it with a longing fondness. I peered down at the statue inside. It was a pair of hands crafted from sunstone, grasping each other tightly as though holding something inside.
It wasn't so much cursed as it was simply magical, more benign than malicious. Curiously, none of the protections I had in place had any effect on it whatsoever. I closed the lid again and stepped outside of the vault, ready to close it up again.
Let your spirit pass on and you're free. It's as easy as that. No more darkness, no more vault, I said to the puppet. As I repeated my offer, it gurgled blood, racing through its middle. Fine, fine. Darkness, vault, got it. I shut the door and walked away, thinking about the pierce, the hands, and the odd connection between them.
It was a few years back now, on a crisp October evening. Crunchy leaves scattered the graveyard outside my home, and the nights had begun to draw in too early for my liking. I was cataloguing the items in my vault when I received a heavy knock at my front door. On the other side was a woman in scrubs holding a wooden box with something heavy inside. Embroidered into the chest pocket were the words Silent Arbor Palliative Care in a gold thread. She had black hair and unusual piercings, winged eyeliner, and green eyes that stared right through me. There was something else to her, though, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. It looked like she'd come right after working at the hospice, but that would have been quite the drive. I couldn't tell if it was fatigue or defeat about her face, but she didn't seem like she wanted to be here.
Hello? I questioned to the unexpected visitor. I'm sorry to bother you. I don't like to show up unexpected, but sometimes I don't have much of a choice, she replied. Her voice was quite deep, but had a smooth softness to it. Can I help you with something? I hope so. She held the box out my way. I took it with a slight caution, surprised at just how heavy it actually was. I hear you deal with particular types of objects, and I was hoping to take one out of your circulation. Yeah, I'm losing my voice. 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, where was I?
Here I'll read this and then you read to
Okay,
here.
yeah.
I realized where she was going with this. Usually, I'd have to hunt them down myself, but to receive one so readily made my job all the easier.
Would you like to come inside? I asked her, wanting to inquire about whatever it was she had brought me. The focus of her eyes changed as she looked through me into the church before scanning upwards to the plain cedar cross that hung above the door. Actually, I better not, she muttered.
She's a demon.
She's a demon.
Yeah! I decided it best to not question her, instead, opening the box to examine what I would be dealing with. A pair of hands, exquisitely crafted with a pink-orange semi-precious material, sunstone. I knew it as a protective material, used to clear negative energy and prevent psychic attacks. I didn't sense anything obviously malicious about the statuette, but there was an unmistakable power to it. There was something about it hiding in plain sight. I lifted the statue out of the box, rotating it from side to side, while I examined it, but it quickly began to warm itself against my fingers, as though the hands were made of flesh rather than stone.
Oh,
Slowly, steadily, the fingers began to part, like a flower going into bloom, revealing what it had kept safe all this time. It remained joined at the wrists, but something inside glimmered like northern lights, just a second, with beautiful pale blues and reds. At the same time my vision pulsed and blurred, and I found myself unable to breathe, as if I was suddenly in a vacuum. My eyes cast up to the woman before me as I struggled to catch my breath. The air felt as thick as molasses, as I heaved my lungs, forcing air back into them and out again. I felt light, on the verge of collapsing, but steadily my breaths returned to me. Her eyes immediately widened with surprise, and her mouth hung slightly open. The astonishment quickly shifted into a smirk. She slowly let her head tilt backwards until she was facing upwards, and releasing a deep sigh of pent-up frustration, finally released. She laughed and laughed. I stood watching her, confused, still holding the hands in my own, still catching my breath, still light-headed.
I see. I see. Her face convulsed with the remnants of her bubbling laughter. I waited so long, and and all I had to do was let it go. She shook her head and held her hands up in defeat. In her voice there was a
Yeah,
tinge of something verging on madness. I have to go. There's somebody I need to see immediately. But hold on to that statue. You'll be paid well for it. With that, she skipped back into her 1980s white Ford Mustang, and with screeching tires pulled off out of my driveway and into the night. She got to be a demon driving a Mustang, man. You already know.
yeah, that's fair.
She never did pay me. Well, not with money anyway.
Time went on, as time often does. Memories of that strange woman faded from my mind, but every time I entered my vault, those hands caught my eye. I remained puzzled, perplexed with what they were supposed to be, what they were what they were supposed to do. I could understand why she would give them to me if they had some terrible curse attached, or even something slightly unsettling. But they just sat there, doing nothing. She could have kept them on a shelf, and it wouldn't have made any difference to her life. Why get rid of it? I felt as though I was missing something. They opened up. Something sparkled, and then they closed again. I lost my breath. It was a powerful magic, whatever it was, but its purpose eluded me. She her soul sucked out or something, man.
Things carried on relatively normally until I received a call about a puppet, a clown, that had been given to a boy as a birthday present. Damn. It was his grandfather recounting a sad tale of his grandson being murdered at a funhouse. Jesus. He
Damn.
wound up lured by some older boys to break into an amusement park that had closed years before, only to be beaten and stabbed. They left him there, thinking nobody would find him. He brought the puppet with him that night in a school bag, but there was no sign of it in the police reports. He was only 8 when he died. Sad, but ordinary enough. The part that
Peaked.
piqued? Jesus, dude.
Yep.
Piqued my interest about the case was that strange murders kept happening in that funhouse. It managed to become quite the local legend, but it was treated with skepticism as much as it was with fear.
The boys who had killed him were in police custody, arrested, tried, and jailed. At first, people thought it was a copycat, since there were always the same amount of stab wounds, but no leads ever wound up linking to a suspect. The police boarded the place up and fixed the hole they'd entered through. It didn't stop kids from breaking in to test their bravery. It didn't stop kids from dying because of it. I knew what had to be done. It was already dusk before I made my way there. The sun hung heavily against the darkening sky, casting the amusement park into shadow against a beautiful gradient. The warped steel of a collapsing Ferris wheel tangled into the shape of trees in the distance, and proud peaks of tents and buildings scraped against the listless clouds. I stood outside the gates in an empty parking lot where grass and weeds reclaimed the land, bringing life back through the cracked tarmac. Tall letters spanned in an arch over the ticket booths, their gates locked and chained. Lunar Park it had been called, a wonderland of amusement for families that sprawled over miles, with its own monorail to get around easier. It was cast along a hill and had been a favorite for years. It eventually grew dil- dila-
Dilapidated? Dilapidated.
dilapidated. Yep,
Ah, see, I got you once. I got you.
you did get
Oh,
me.
I
You did
got
get
you.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It eventually grew dilapidated, and its bigger rides closed. And after passing through buyer after buyer, it wound up in the hands of a private equity firm, and its doors closed entirely.
I started by checking my bag. I had my torch, holy water, salt, robe, wire cutters, rope. Okay, I
Rope.
thought I said robe. I'm like, why do you have a
My
robe?
holy robe. That'd be hilarious if it said robe.
That's funny. Rope, wire cutters, all my usual supplies. I had heard that kids had gotten in through a gap in the fence near the back of the log flume, so I had made my way around through a worn dirt path through the woodland that surrounded the park. Whoever had fixed up the fence hadn't done a fantastic job, simply screwing down a piece of plywood over the gap the kids made. So you're telling me that these kids are getting murdered, and some guy just comes over and just puts like a thin piece of plywood.
You just put a little bit of
these
wood up.
kids,
I'll
these
keep them
kids are
out.
getting through.
Yeah, it's funny.
Getting inside was easy. Well, that's great to hear. But getting around would be harder. When this place was alive, there would be music blaring out from the speakers atop their poles, lights to guide the way along the winding paths, the crowds to follow from one place to the next. Now, though, all that remained was the gaunt quiet and hollow darkness.
I came upon a crossroads marked with what was once a food stall that served overpriced slices of pizza and drinks that would have been mostly ice. There was a map on a signboard with a big red "You are here" dot amidst the maze of pathways between points of interest. Mold had begun to grow beneath the plastic, covering up half of the map, while moisture blurred the dye together into an unintelligible mess. I squinted through the darkness, my light to avoid the glare as I tried to make sense of it all. There was a sudden bang from within the food stall as something dropped to the floor, then a rattle from further around inside. My fear rose to a flicker of movement from the corner of my eye. Skipping through the gloom beyond the counter, my guard raised and I sunk a pocket into my bag. Huh. Curling my fingers around the wooden cross I'd stashed in there. I approached quietly and quickly swung my flashlight to where I'd heard the scampering. A small masked face hissed at me, its eyes glowing green in the light of my torch. Tiny needle-like teeth bared at me menacingly, but the creature bounded around the room and left from the back door where it had entered.
It was just a raccoon. Oh. I heaved a deep breath and rolled my eyes, turning my attention back to the map until I found the funhouse. I walked along the eerily silent course of the fairground, fallen autumn leaves scattering around my feet along the gentle breeze. Signs hung, broken, weeds and grasses grew wild, and the paint chipped away from every surface, leaving bare rusty metal. The whole place was dead, decaying, and bit by bit returning to nature.
Mm.
At last, I came upon it, a mighty space built into 3 levels. That had clearly once been a colorful, joyous place outside the entrance was a fiberglass genie reaching down his arms over the double doors, peering inside as if to watch people enter. His expression was one of joy and excitement. The half of his head has been shattered in.
Across the genie's arms, somebody had spray painted the words, "Pay to enter, pray to leave." Given what had happened here, it seemed quite appropriate. A cold wind picked up behind me, and tiny hairs across my body began to rise. The plywood boards the police had used to seal the entrance had already been smashed wide open. I took a deep breath, summoned my courage, and headed inside. I was led up a set of stairs that creaked and groaned beneath my feet, and suddenly met with a loud clack as one of the steps moved away from me, dropping under my foot to the one side. It was on a hinge in the middle, so no matter what side I chose, I'd be met with surprise. After the next step, I expected it to come, carefully moving the stair to its lower position before I applied my weight. I was caught off guard again by another step moving completely down instead of just left to right. Even though I was on my own, I felt I was being made a fool of. Finally, with some difficulty, I made my way to the top to be met with a weathered cartoon figure with its face painted over with a skull. A warm welcome, clearly.
Clearly.
The stairway yeah, the stairway led to a circular room with a yellow-gray glow in the dark yellow-gray
Spattered.
glow in the dark, paint spattered across the ceiling, made to look like stars. The phosphorus inside had long since gone, untouched by the UV lights around the room, leaving the whole place dark. The floor was meant to spin around, but unpowered posed no threat. Before I crossed over, I found my mind wandering to the kid that died here. This was where he was found sprawled out across the disk, bleak, looking up at the synthetic sky.
I'm not gonna lie, bro. Your mic just started tweaking.
You want me to reread this then?
No. It wasn't that bad. It was just at the end. Do you want to just reread from this?
Uh,
Just say this was where. Right there.
This is where he was found sprawled out across the disk, left to bleed out while looking up at the synthetic sky.
There you go. I stared at the center of the disc as I crossed, picturing the poor boy screaming out, left alone and cold as the teens abandoned him here. Slowly decaying, rotting, returning to nature just as the park was around him. My lips curled into a frown as the thought. Behind me, a fire alarm sounded. An electrical pops crackled through the funhouse. Garbled fairground music began to play through weathered, battered speakers, and in the distance,
Yeah.
lights cut through the darkness more and more. The place began to illuminate, encroaching through the shadows until it reached the room I was in, and the ominous, violent hue of the UV lights lit up. I was met with a spattered galaxy of glowing, milky blue speckles across the walls. Love how I just fucked up with that word, even though I corrected you on it.
Damn.
And I quickly realized with horror that it wasn't the stars. It was his blood, sprayed with, oh no,
Luminol.
luminol,
Yep.
and left unclear the final testament of what had happened here.
I was shaken by the immediacy. I was shaken by the immediacy of it all and started fumbling around in my bag. Salt? No, it wasn't a demon. Copper? Silver? No. My fingers fumbled across the spray bottle filled with holy water, trembling across the trigger as I tried to pull it out. My feet were taken from under me as the disc began spinning rapidly, and I bashed my face directly onto the cold metal. I scrambled to my feet, only to be cast down again as the floor changed directions. A twisted laughter blasted across the speakers, in time with the music changing key. I wasn't sure if it was my mark or just part of the experience, but I wasn't going to hang around to find out. I got to my knees and waited for the wheel to spin towards the exit, rolling my way out and catching my breath. Ugh, fuck this, I scoffed, pressing onwards into a room with moving flooring. Sliding backwards and forwards, then into a hallway with floor panels that would drop and raise when stepped on, while jets of air burst out of the floor and walls as they activated. The loud whoosh jolted me at first, but I quickly came to expect it. After pushing through soft bollards, I had to climb up to another level over stairs that constantly moved down like an escalator moving backwards.
Oh god. This led to a
Cylindrical.
cylindrical. This bastard.
Yeah, using big words for
Using
smart
big
people. What is this?
words.
Yeah,
This led to a cylindrical tunnel painted with swirls and patterns, with different sections of its moving in alternating directions and at different speeds. To say it was supposed to be a funhouse, there was nothing fun about it. I still hadn't seen the puppet I was here to find. All around my strobe lights flashed and pulsed in various tones, showing different paintings across the wall as different colors illuminated it. It was clever design, but I wasn't here for that. After I'd made my way through the tunnel, I had to contend? Yeah.
content. Yep.
Contend with a hallway of spinning fabric like a car wash, all the while on guard for an ambush. As I made it through to the other side, the top of the slide was waiting for me.
A noose hung from its top, hovering over the hole that sparkled with the now active twinkling lights. Somebody had spray painted the words 6 feet under, with an arrow leading down into the tunnel. I didn't have much choice. I pushed the noose to the side and put my legs in. I didn't dare to slide right down. I'd heard the stories of blades being fixed into place to shred people as they descended, or spikes at the other end to catch people unaware. Given the welcoming message somebody had tagged at the top, I didn't want to take my chances. I scooted my way down slowly, flashing lights leading the way down and around, and around and around. It was free of any dangers, thankfully, and the bottom ended in a deep ball pit. I waded my way through, still on guard, and headed onwards into the Hall of Mirrors. Strobe lights continued to pulse overhead, flashing light and darkness across the scene before me. Some of the mirrors had been broken, and someone had sprayed arrows across the glass to conveniently lead the way through. The music throbbed louder, and pressure plates activated more of the air jets that once again took me by surprise. I managed to hit a dead end, and turning around, I realized I'd lost my way. Again, I hit the wall, turned to the right, and there I saw it, sitting right there on the floor, that big grin painted across its face. It must have been around a foot tall, holding a knife in its hand, about as big as the puppet was. My fingers clasped together around the bottle of holy water as I began my approach, slowly calculating directions. I lost sight of it as its reflection passed a frame around one of the mirrors. I backed up to get a view on it again, but it had vanished. I swung about, looking behind me, to find nothing but my own reflection, staring back at me 10 times over. I felt cold. I swallowed deeply, attuning my hearing to listen to it scamper about, unsure if it even could. All I could do was move deeper.
I took a left, holding out my hand to feel for what was real and what was a illusion. All around me was glass again. I had to move back. I had to find it. In the previous hallway, I saw it again. This time, I would be more careful. With cautious footsteps, I stalked closer, keeping my eyes trained on the way the mirrors around it moved its reflection about. The lights flickered off again for a moment, as they strobed once more, but now it was gone again. Fuck. I huffed under my
Yeah,
breath. Wait, you didn't like my fuck?
it was funny.
I huffed under my breath, moving faster now as my heart beat with heavy thuds. Feeling around on the glass, I turned another corner and saw an arrow sprayed in orange paint that I decided to follow. I ran faster, turning a corner after a corner as the lights flashed and strobed. Another arrow, another turn. I followed them, sprinting past other pathways until I hit another dead end, with a yellow smiley face painted on a broken mirror at the end. I was infiltrated, scared.
Infuriated.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
I was infuriated, scared shitless in oh no. Wait. In this
plus,
claustrophobic prison of glass.
yup.
Yeah. I turned
Yeah.
again, and there it was, reflection in all the mirrors. I could see every angle of it, floating in place, 2 feet off the floor, smiling at me. The lights flashed like a thunderstorm, and I raised my bottle. There was a strange rippling in the mirrors as the reflections began to distort and warp like the surface of water on a pond. A distraction, and before I knew it, the doll blasted through the air from every direction. I didn't know where to point, but I began spraying wildly as fast as my fingers could squeeze.
The music blared louder than before, and I grew immediately horrified at the sensation of a burning, sharp pain in my shoulder as the knife entered me. Again, in my shoulder, I thrashed my hands to try and grab it, but grasped wildly at the air and at myself. Again it struck. It was a violent, thrashing panic as I fought for my life, gasping for air as I fell to the ground, the bottle rolling away from me, out of reach. It hovered above me for a moment, still smirking, nothing more than a blackened silhouette as the lights above strobed and flickered. I raised my arms defensively and muttered futile incantations as quickly as I could, expecting nothing but death. I saw its blackened outline raise the knife again, not to strike, but in question. I glanced to it myself, tracking its motion, and saw what the doll saw in the flashing lights. There was no blood. Confused, I quickly patted my wounds to find them dry. A sound of distant pattering out of pace with the music grew louder, quicker, and the confused doll turned in the air to face the other direction. I thought it could be my chance, but before I could raise myself, another shadow blocked out the lights. There, hand clasped around the doll, with a tinkling clatter, the knife dropped to the ground, and the doll began to thrash wildly, kicking and throwing punches with its short arms. A longer arm came to reach its face, with a swift backhand, and the doll fell limp. I shuffled backwards against the glass with the smiley face, running my fingers against sharp fragments on the floor. The lights glinted again, illuminating a woman's face with unusual piercings, and I realized I'd seen her deep green eyes before. Still holding the doll, outright, her eyes slid down to me, her face stoic, with a stern indifference. I said nothing, my jaw agape as I stared up at her.
I think I owe you an explanation. We left the place together, and though the inky night drove back to my church, the whole time I fingered at my wounds, still feeling the burning pain inside me, but seemingly unharmed. Questions bubbled to the forefront of my mind as I disassociated from the road ahead of me, and I arrived to find her with White Mustang in the driveway, while she sat atop the steps with the lifeless puppet. In one hand, a lit cigarette, in the other, the whole what? In
With the lifeless puppet in one hand, a
oh
lit
oh
cigarette
oh
in
yeah,
the
I
other.
just read that weird.
Yeah.
The whole time I walked up, I couldn't take my eyes off of her. Would you like to come inside? I asked. She shook her head. I'd better not. She took a long drag from her smoke, and with a heaving sigh, she closed her eyes and lowered her head. I saw her body judder, jitter, judder,
Judder.
judder, judder for a moment. Nothing more than a shiver, and her head raised once more, her hair parting to reveal her face again. This time, though, the green in her eyes was replaced with a similar glowing milky blue as the
Luminol.
luminol.
The origin of the trickster hands baffles death, as knowledgeable as she is. Centuries ago, a man defied death by hiding his soul between the hands. I knew it! I knew it took her soul! For the first time, death was unable to take someone's soul. For the first time, death was cheated, powerless. Death has tried to separate the hands ever since, without success. It seemed the trick to the hands was to simply give up. Death has a lot of time on her hands. She doesn't tend to give up easily. You saw their soul released. Death paid a visit to him, and, for the first time, really enjoyed taking someone's soul to the afterlife. However, the hands are now holding another soul. Your soul. Don't think Death is angry with you. You were caught unknowingly in this. For that, Death apologizes. Until the day the hands decide to open again, you are no, you are immortal. It's so sick. That, I looked away, taking it all in. That answers some of my questions. The light faded from her eyes again as they darkened into that forest green. I cocked my head to one side. Before I had chance to open my mouth to speak, the puppet began to twitch and gurgle, a sound that would become all too familiar as it spewed blood that spattered across the steps of this hollowed ground. That was awesome.
That was pretty cool. Yeah,
I really enjoyed that.
that was definitely not what I was expecting. It was still very good.
Yeah, honestly, I did not expect her to become like an immortal, or that the lady had anything to do with all that. That
I feel like this is definitely a part of a bigger series or something because I feel like we're missing stuff. Like I feel like I still don't know a lot
yeah,
about the character, and I want to know more about the character.
yeah. I want to know what comes next. Like it was left on
Yeah,
like a cliffhanger almost.
and there was the introduction to that painting, and we barely even talked about the painting. So like,
I feel like the painting was that was more of just like an introduction to the cursed objects and how they come about. You
yeah,
know?
yeah, but I feel like there's gonna be more. There's got to be more at play. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, that's fair.
I feel like there wouldn't be these things for no reason. Like I feel like maybe the writer's working on a second part to the story or something like that. I'm not sure.
The figure out. That was really good though.
Hey, I enjoyed that. It was very well written. I struggled a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big
Happens each
words.
time though. We both struggle. With smart words.
Smart words. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you guys tomorrow. And if you have anything you
We'll see you
want to
tomorrow.
talk to us about or give us feedback on, you can comment. And we have a Reddit up now too, so it should be
Oh
in
yeah.
our description, so you can just talk to us on our Reddit too.
Yep.
All right. Goodbye.